welcome to another episode of the Whensday Warm-Up with me, Lee. Hi, how's it? Just another disclaimer, the Whensday Warm-Up is proudly brought to you by the Insights Show. And we have a very, very interesting topic today. I just want to say, when I checked the live stream queued up in the program, I was like, 5 people waiting. Okay, so clearly this is a very interesting topic. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to jump straight into it. I'm going to introduce you to my guests. I'm so excited to have these beautiful ladies back in studio. It's not your first time on this show.
No.
But this show is not like the other shows that you are on, right? This one is a little more intense. So I'm going to start with my guests to my right, your left, the ladies' corner. We've got the ladies' corner over here, and then we'll jump to the gents' corner over there.
I'm all alone.
But good morning. We'll start with you, Yentl. Please just introduce yourself. Your camera's over there. Just introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hi, I'm Yentl and we're ready to jump in.
So, who is Yentl? Tell us a little bit about, I know that you are a mom, obviously, that's why you are here on the show today, but what else other than that?
A business owner. I like to think of myself as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And mom of 4 boys.
She definitely a boy's mom. Interesting, because we've got a nice balance between the two here this morning, because Yentl is a boy's mom. And how about you, Crystal?
I'm Crystal Jacobs, and yes, I'm also a mum. I would say now a mum of 6.
Wow.
And then, yes, I'm a businesswoman. I was on the show before. I'm Lady J. So, yeah, that's my business.
Awesome. And then to on my left-hand side over here, we've got the boys' corner. One boy in the corner here. Good day, Pastor Neil. How are you?
Good morning, Lee. Thanks for having me on the show again. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Neil Hudsenberg. I'm the family counselor at the Crystal Church. I'm married to Cheryl, my beautiful wife, for 28 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 28 years. I stand under correction. So if you get the message on there,
Stand under
please,
correction.
28 years. I have one daughter, Chanel.
Yes.
And
So
that's
you a girl dad.
a girl's dad.
Yesterday. The girls seem to be dominating in the studio
Yeah,
here.
I'm telling
Yentl,
you.
your boys are lagging behind there. I think you need to work a little harder.
No, thanks.
Please, Yentl.
Seeing that you've got the gift of the boy, the boys'
Chances
mom.
are it'll be another boy.
Exactly. No, your husband that's really come through strong with the boys there. You can basically, you can start a soccer team. Crystal, I don't know about you. You can
I got
also
5
start.
Hockey
girls.
team.
You can also
Five.
start a girls soccer team.
Yeah.
Or
Let's say
Hockey
hockey.
team.
a hockey
Yeah.
team.
Football team.
Okay. And your son will be the
Shame.
referee.
Yeah, shame.
But we're getting into this topic of blended families, right? So blended families is obviously not a new phenomenon. But I think that blended is fairly new. It's a new concept or a new noun to describe the kind of family dynamic that we're going to be speaking about this morning. So according to my understanding, a blended family is when 2 families join together, which is generally the mother and the father decide that they love each other, but they have children of their own. Either partner has children of their own, or both partners has children of their own from their exes, right? And then the families come together, and either through marriage or dating, and now the families need to get along with each other. I guess that is the ultimate goal, is that not so? So because you come from 2 different families, 2 different homes, there were 2 different dynamics before then. Now we're talking about that blend that comes together when the 2 of you and your partner, you and your husband, or you and your boyfriend meet up, and now the families need to get along with each other. And that's what we're going to discuss this morning. So the first thing I want to ask Pastor Neil, from your perspective, what is your idea of a blended family? Obviously, the dynamic is not going to look the same for every family, but your basic understanding of what that is.
I think the ultimate goal when 2 people coming together as children from either side, I think the ultimate goal is really to have this cohesive bond between the children.
Okay.
Because mom and dad already had established a connection. So now the connection between children, both parties' children, pardon, and also the connection between can I use the word step for where we
Yes.
are now, stepmom and dad, and the other way around. And I think the ultimate goal and what we want to see is how this family comes together as a unit now, considering all the factors before the marriage or the coming together of the two, husband and wife.
Yes.
So I think ultimately what we want to see is that this family now really becomes this united family with all of the cultures that has been created in the household, with all of the habits that has been formed, and how do you manage this for the rest of your lives? Because if the children are unhappy, guess what? Marriage is not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Because you can have the best aspiration for your relationship and your marriage, but if the kids are not working with you, it becomes a problem. So our ultimate goal, and when I hear blended families, really to put together this boiling pot of emotions and characters and all of the personalities that goes with that, and really managing that in order for your marriage and your family to be successful.
Can I just come in there? I noticed Pastor Neil was a bit reluctant to use the word step
Yeah.
because there's such a
Negative connotation.
towards step, but I use the word stepson all the time, and I'm a stepmother because that is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You will never be the real mother
No, I
or
can't
the real
be.
father.
I can't be the
Yes.
real mother. But step doesn't mean bad things. I know people always use the phrase evil stepmother.
Yes.
You know, evil stepfather.
Fairy tales has obviously made the
it
step
such a bad word to use, but it really isn't.
I'll come back to that one just now, and I'll tell you why I want to move away from the word step when it comes. Yeah,
Okay.
but there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
It's a term that we all use.
Yes.
But for the purpose of where we're getting,
Yeah.
I'll explain that.
So what was interesting for me when you guys introduced yourself was that you collectively said that, like, I'm a mom of 4 boys. I'm a mom of 6, right? You didn't say I'm a stepmom of 1 boy and a mom to 3 boys, which is interesting because obviously you know that your words reflect what's in the heart. For me, many a times that is how it is. And I think that it sounds like you have bridged many of the challenges, right? Obviously there's many other challenges, but it seems like you've bridged that and you've got a good, conducive, constructive family dynamic. But before we get into that, I'd like you to tell our viewers about what your family dynamic, your blended family dynamic looks like. So for instance, how many kids? You already mentioned that, or was it before the show when you were like, well, your stepson lives with his mom, right? But tell us about that dynamic. How many kids of your own? How many kids of your partner? And then from there, what is the living dynamics like for you?
So I've got 1 stepson, and then 3 of my own boys.
Okay.
I met my stepson when he was 2, turning 3.
Okay.
He's now turning 20 this year. So like you said, we have bridged a lot of gaps, and it's, of course, there was challenges along the way, but my recollection of me being with him or us being together has always been good. Majority of the time has been good, let me say.
Okay.
So yeah.
And for you?
I think with me, I maybe have the perfect blended.
Yeah.
Equal. It's equal.
Equal. Because my boyfriend has 3
Okay.
beautiful girls, and then I have 3 kids as well, 2 girls, 1 boy. We were previously married.
Okay.
So, So we came obviously together, fell in love, and so we have 6 together, and we currently stay together, and the 3 girls stay with the mum, and kids.
Yes.
Obviously, mom's kids, custody of the kids, and then my 3 stays with me.
Okay.
The 3 girls is very, very involved, so they stay with us every second weekend during the week. So
Okay.
So we're very involved.
And how long is this new family dynamic?
We now staying together now for a year.
Okay.
A year.
Okay.
We're together.
Okay. So I just wanted us to do the initial introduction, like what does your family dynamic look like, right?
Yeah.
And then I want to get into first and foremost, obviously you did not growing up think that you'd ever be, unless that was your thing, like, oh, I would love to be a stepmom someday, right?
Yeah.
So it's obviously life happens. There's things that you cannot control. Like
Yeah.
for you, both you and your partner are divorcees,
Yeah.
and now you've come together and you've started this new dynamic,
Yeah.
right? But I'd like to get into first and foremost, how was it in the beginning? Because obviously
Yeah.
okay, let me not say obviously because I don't know. Miracles can happen. And
Yeah.
it could have been roses
Yeah.
and it could have been sunshine.
Yeah.
But for many people, and many people maybe who are even watching, that's not the case,
Yeah.
right? It was a very tricky, mushy waters
Yeah.
to navigate
navigate,
through.
Yeah.
So how was it in the beginning? Especially you were much younger, Yentl,
Yeah.
in your case. You were much younger.
Yeah.
Your stepson was also very young. So maybe it was, I don't know, could it have been beneficial or was it actually much harder to almost train the stepchildren into the
Yeah.
new dynamic? Did you have a discussion with your partner beforehand or did things just happen for the both of you?
So initially when I met my husband, he told me up front, like from the get-go, that he has a son.
Yes.
And honestly, it wasn't like a shocker to me, or it wasn't a deal breaker for me. I think I embraced it from the start,
Okay.
that he has a son. I was initially very nervous to meet his son. But when I met him, it was in a very social setting. We were at his aunt's place, and there was a whole lot of family around, and I seen his little boy running around. That was my first interaction with him.
Okay.
But obviously, when we started spending one-on-one time together, it became a different setup. But he was always such a loving person, loving child, and up until now, he still is very loving, very respectful. So it was very natural and very easy for me to get drawn towards him and for me to love him the way I do.
Yes.
So it was very easy for me. He's never been, up until this point, he's now an adult. He's never been disrespectful towards me or even his father. So it was really very easy.
Do you think that because you met him at the younger age, it was easier then for him to grow up into the new dynamic? Or do you just think that that was his nature and because of certain things that you did earlier on in?
I do think it was easier because I met him when he was younger. But then I mentioned this to Crystal earlier. Like we sometimes we think that kids don't know as much as we assume.
Okay.
But kids, no matter how young or how old they are, they can feel
Yeah.
your vibes, basically.
Yes.
So if you have bad intent or if your heart is not pure towards the child
Yeah.
will automatically resist you. So I believe that is a very big thing as a step-parent or as a parent, to obviously make sure that your intentions and your motives and your heart towards the child is good, because
Yes.
that child will resist you if you're not open towards it.
Yes. And for you, Crystal, how was it in the beginning?
So in the beginning, because we were like friends, taking it now back, it was not like easy. How can I say? Because we fell in love. You know how the perfect picture is of the two. You fall in love, and
Yes.
it's good and nice. And then yes, we were just obviously in this love bubble and stuff like this. And I like what he my guy always says is that, yes, we were in this space where it was just the two of us, falling in love, and sometimes we didn't take into consideration, obviously the kids' feelings, or because they
Yes.
just had to now fall in line, basically. You know
okay.
what I'm saying? And then we had to take a step back and say, look, we have to now look, obviously, it's new for them as well.
Yes.
Yes, we now fell in love, and yes, which is good and well. But then it's different for them because obviously there was marriages before, and mom and dad was together, and now mom and dad is no more together, and now
Yes.
there's a new family now, and we have to sometimes also just take a step back. And then consider their feelings and consider where they might be coming, and that's where one has to be maybe very patient with them as well. And yes, I must, so we're basically learning. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yes.
So it's a learning thing for us
Experience.
every day.
Okay.
But yeah, we're very patient with them, and taking it a day at a time. So
Okay.
yeah.
So, Pastor Neil, from a family counselor perspective, this new dynamic, right? Because obviously last week we spoke about marriages, and now you and your partner, you and your husband, or you and your wife, you develop this new family. But now there's a different situation where you have two different families that's coming from past relationships, previous marriages or previous relationships, and there's a child involved or there's children involved. It's a sensitive situation, and you heard what Crystal said. I mean, your partner's children are they're not as young as what like the eldest child is
turning 14,
right? And with your stepson, it was a younger age, so it was 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old, I think you said. But now there's that dynamic that comes into play. Pastor Neil spoke about it earlier. There's a mix of personalities, characters, temperaments, different likes and dislikes, lifestyle, behavior changes, those kinds of things. How do you handle a situation like that? And what do you think is the key thing that the parents that fall in love, what do you think that they should do having this in mind and they want to pursue a relationship or a marriage together?
Yeah, so I must just admit, at first I was very hesitant to either counsel or marry people who had children, because I understood the dynamics from where both would come.
Yes.
And I think that if the kids are not happy, then obviously the partner's not going to be okay. But then one day I was watching a program, I think it was on Disney Channel some years back, where they had those fantasy weddings, where you would put in a request, and I'd like to get married in Disney World or the Bahamas. And so the people would arrange this. And so Cheryl and I were watching this program, and on the program, while they were doing the wedding ceremony, the pastor called, or the priest called up the child and also said a set of vows to them.
Wow.
Where they had to make a commitment to this child. She asked the husband, because it was the lady's child. He asked her questions, and they had to exchange vows at this point. And that brought me to another state of mind, thinking that, you know what, if we can do that from the onset, because I was never exposed. I think it was 2005 where I had to do a counseling with blended families, and that brought a dynamic to me. If people can just manage that and be mature enough to know what you're getting yourself into, then if at the onset, and I think Crystal touched on what I wanted to say, and preparing my mind for the show, is that we consider sometimes that we're in love, and many times people who are in love do not consider the feelings. You don't need to have the children's permission, but at least you need to have the consideration towards you getting married. And I think it sets the tone for where you are going, the openness and the transparency. So I think really first the couple, husband and wife, or possible husband and wife coming together, sit down and look at the dynamics of what you have. And also one must not be scared to look at the realities, because while I'm sitting there in counsel, they'll tell me, because they're in love, the children are even calling me daddy now, and they're excited, but it's short-lived. Because the day is going to come when discipline has to be enforced, when the children are doing what you want to, and then you're going to hear, you're not my father. And I am honest and open and transparent, and I say, listen, prepare yourself in case those words come out, so that you know how to deal with it, or you're going to be so frustrated and say, your child, it's your child. And that is where I wanted to come in with a step. Once you from the onset realize that I need not to bring the step in, because if you say step, and it has a negative connotation to it, we can mention it, it's fine. But in your mind, that needs, and what Yentl said, you would not say that, she said, I've got 4 kids, and that is the tone for what you said.
Yes.
And if I can use for an example, my sister, my elder sister, had a child out of wedlock. She married her husband, Greg. And you know what? Up until this day, you cannot tell the difference, because it was not part of the discussion.
Okay.
My nephew was never Gregory's stepson. It was always my son. I mean, my friends that used to come there, one day we were sitting there, and so his biological father was ill. And he was somewhere in Japan or somewhere. He was on a tour or singing somewhere. And so they said, now who's this guy now? Then I said to my friend, hey, dude, it's Mervin's father. He said, you will never say that Greg is not his son. They talk the same. They look the same. You will never have that. For as long as I know, I never ever heard that there were any issues between them that I know of.
Yes.
So I think that a level of maturity needs to step in, where the couple consider the kids, not necessarily having their permission, but to consider and look at the dynamics and look at the reality of the matter and how you're going to deal with that. So I think that from the onset, you need to be honest, transparent, talk about it, find solutions before you get there.
Okay.
And look at all the negative things that might affect. And people say must always be positive, but you cannot overlook these
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
And so look at the scenarios. We've got enough case studies and we've got enough history to show what blended families or unblended families will look like. So base that, and I think for couples who are ready to get married who are in that situation, I think to consider, count the cost. Before you say I do, count the cost of that, because your children are going to be an effective part of your life for the rest of your lives.
Of course.
And if you want to have a happy home, they usually say happy wife, happy life. And in this case, I think if the kids are happy, then your lives as both parents will be okay.
Yeah.
So, Pastor Neil, we spoke about the relationships with the kids, and that seems to always be the easiest part.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we go over to the relationship that you now need to navigate with that child's other parent. Okay. Because, okay, you guys are in love, you are starting a blended family, good for you. But that child still has, those children or that child still has another biological parent. In your cases, your stepchildren, for the sake of the show, has a biological mother. And in both cases, that mother is still alive and still very present in their children's lives. But how do you now navigate, or what did you do? Because obviously there's challenges with that. But what did you do, or what decisions did you make? Like, even if we don't sit around the same table, because not everybody has that privilege where the biological parents, where the
happy.
two families or the two different families
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
sit around the same table, right? There's many cases where that is not the case,
Yeah.
Almost
right?
all the time, yeah.
And a lot of the times, in society we call it baby mama drama,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How do you overcome that baby mama drama? Because you have to make a decision for yourself. Because not only does it affect your marriage, it affects the other children, and it affects the stepchild. So how did you navigate through that?
I think from the onset, I decided that I'll always respect my stepson's mother because she is his mother.
Yes.
And I would always try my best to know my place. So I always encouraged if there was anything that needed to be decided with regards to my stepson, or anything that there was situations, I would make my husband and her sort it out
Okay.
and not get involved unless they involve me.
Okay.
Which was very rarely that they involved me, but of course that sometimes I would feel sidelined, but because your husband's best interest or your partner's best interest is your best interest,
Yes.
so sometimes you would feel sidelined, but I would always go back to what's best for him, for my son. So, or my stepson, what's best for him, his best interest I would always put first. So I would honestly try and avoid confrontation or avoid issues at every cost. And try and know that my place is just to love him. That's all I need to do.
Yes. And for you, Crystal?
Well, for me, look, I think one has to be civil about it. And I
Yes.
always say that your mum is your mum. I can never take that place. And either way, with my kids or with his kids, I always say that you have your mum is your mum, and I respect her. I respect her. I can never take that place. I can be best because I always use the term mother figure
Yeah.
or dad figure. I don't
Yes.
use no step again. So I'm like, you have one mum, one dad, and I'm a mum figure, and Oriental is a dad figure, right? And I maintain to say that I respect her as the mum as well as vice versa, right? So it's a case of, yes, I look, even when it comes to with the girls, we've never had, because she knows I love the girls.
Yes.
And I really do. And like in December, she sent me a message like, thanks for, loving my girls.
Wow.
And which is nice.
Yes.
Nice, because I say always the kids will say the best story. They get it
True.
firsthand. So if they're not in
Yeah.
a good space and they neglected, then there's a story now that we can talk about.
Yes.
But I love them openly. All the kids, we try to treat them equally and stuff like that. And even with Jay, look, because she's a teenager, I always say, because I come from it. I come from a divorced family. Like, you know, I can relate to her a lot.
Okay.
So what she's going through or what she's experiencing and stuff like that, I know it firsthand. So how to relate with her, I'm very open and I have compassion and patient in that regard. Because look, kids is going to go through their own emotions. They're going to go through, and that is why we said we need to be patient with them and just try to see how we can navigate as together with the kids through this whole thing, because it's challenging for them as much as it's for us. So but when it comes to the other parent, there's not really issues. I think it's like, you know, putting the kids, obviously considering them and where they're at and loving them. And really, I do love them as my own and just, respecting their mom. I always do that. And both of us, with the other parents, we respect them as their role in their lives.
Yes.
And I always say, I can be the best in my shoes. A mother or a mother figure.
Yes.
That's me, and I'm going to do it best. I know how. I'm not going to play dad. I'm not going to play whoever. I'm going to do my best, which is being mom or a mom figure.
Wow.
I honestly feel like it really just boils down to maturity.
Yeah.
You have to be very mature to be able to navigate a situation like this.
Yeah.
And you have to respect the other person
Yes.
at all costs. Because like Crystal was saying, you can't be that person's mother. If the mother's not, or the mother or the father is not actively involved in the child's life or not present in the child's life, then you obviously have another level that you need to step up to.
Yes.
But if the person is actively involved and the person is present in the child's life, then you need to know your place.
Yes.
You need to know your place in order for that person not to feel like you overstepping your boundaries, or for that person to feel like you're not trying to take over their position. So, like, I know a lot of parent or step parents would want their children to call them mom and dad.
Yeah.
But for me, like, if I was in that situation and my children were calling somebody else mom and I'm well and awake and alive, I would take such big offense to it, because I'm here. Why are you calling somebody else mom? So respect that there is a parent involved in the child's life.
Pastor Neil, for you, obviously not every family is going to be as, I'm not going to say easy, because it wasn't easy for you guys, but I think that not many, let's call it maturity then, not many, let's say for instance biological parents, both mom and dad, right, can be as mature about it for their own reason. Obviously, and you're not judging that person either, for their own reason. There could maybe be bitterness still that between the two of you, because now you are divorced. There's still bitterness between the other, you and the other partner. And as a step parent, you can still say, it's okay, I can respect. But that biological mother or that biological father doesn't have the same mentality. They don't want to be, or they can't be mature about it. They cannot see their flaws, they cannot see their faults. How then do they overcome that? How do you deal with a situation like that, where now there's like that mother or that father's like, you are not taking my children this week, or you are not going to do this, and it's difficult to like, see, we're just trying to,
Just
Trying to be happy.
get along, like, but this person makes it difficult, extra hard, basically, for you to have that constructive and conducive relationship.
I think Yentl said it very perfectly just now. I think no one wants their child to call somebody else mommy and daddy. So when people come for premarital counseling, and so I'm off the bat, do you have kids of your own?
Yes.
I need to understand that dynamic. Pardon. And so...
Do you need some water, Pastor?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki. My caps.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah. And so I asked the question, listen here, do you have kids? And they say yes.
Yeah.
And I warned them. I said, listen here, if
Thank you.
if the person that you have a child from is going to find out that you want to get married, prepare yourself
Yes.
for some challenges and for some resistance.
Yeah.
I tell them that in the beginning. Guess what? They'll come back 2 weeks later. Dude, this person has just come, because it is that dynamic. The maturity levels are not as such. I recall once a friend of mine, a close friend of mine. So he's in this situation. He's got a kid, a daughter from this lady, and so he decides to get married. And so this lady is not happy about it. Before that, it was okay, he'll get the child every second week, they'll do this. But now they're married. And so every time you'll go pick up the child. He drives all the way from the East Rand to the West Rand, comes there. She's got a lot to say. She don't want the child to go, and she's living with somebody. Got a lot to do, and she's got a lot to say. Delay. Sometimes they leave at 10 o'clock, putting up a performance, calling the police, and all of these things because she wasn't past the fact that he's getting married.
Sure.
Then we sat down one day. He came through. He said, "Listen, I need to talk to you. Can we sit down?" And we devised the plan. So this was the plan. So where the child goes to school is almost halfway between that. And so I said to him, the more you go there, the more you're going to have problems. And so he even tried for his wife to contact her. She wouldn't want that. He tried to contact the husband or the boyfriend. And so because she's bitter, she influences the guy because guys can easily talk because we're having a big picture in mind.
Yes.
So anyway, and then we sat down. I said, "Listen, where does the kid go to school?" "No, there." I said, "Okay, let's do this. When it's your turn to come and get the child, arrange with the school for the child to take their bags with them. Leave it at school on the Friday. You pick her up. You go home with her. You don't have to see her.
Okay.
Monday morning, you bring the child back to school with her clothes, washed, ironed, and everything. The mom picks the child up from school and go home. So you eliminate the contact and the conflict, and that helped.
Okay.
You know what? That forced this lady to get to a point where she realized that, listen, this guy is over me, and I'm not. There's no way. If he wants to see his child, this has been a means for them to get there. Until today, after that incident, it happened for about 6 months where this went on, and she didn't get the satisfaction. She would phone the work, she would make things unbearable for him. But it came to a place where the less conflict that existed, the easier it was for her now to sit down and realize, okay, yeah, I need to back down. And today they are the best of friends. They can come together as both. She got married to that guy eventually, and they can come as a family. And now, because she understands the big picture, that it wasn't about her at that point in time. He had moved on and she has an opportunity to move on. It was about the well-being of the child.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised because the children are interrogated. So they one weekend, they go back home. Then they want to know, what did your father do there? What did your new mother do? Because they want to make the child feel bad. And so this child don't know how to handle this thing. And they interrogate the children. Poor 9-year-old must now answer questions. Where now, okay, so we went to Carnival City this weekend. Now next week you want to do one better. Go to Sun City with the child because you want. But the essence of it is really when people realize, and I think that if they can get to this point of thinking that the big picture is the child's well-being.
Yeah.
Because you in love, this child, if we don't take care of this child is going to be lost. Rejection, all of the things that goes with that. So I think how to deal with that is to find somebody who walks a middle path, get people involved. Sometimes that don't help, but sometimes drastic measures. And the thing about that is when there's this conflict and this, there are ways to get around. You don't need to be friends with that, with the child's mom. Yeah, you don't have to. But at least when there's civility, because ultimately that child is sick. If something happens to that child, we are drawn to each other. So I think couples must get to a place where they realize that this is not about me being better, it's about my child being better. I think that it's ultimately
100%.
And you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that in this specific situation, and I'm not saying that it's the case with this, but oftentimes you'll find that, for instance, with the other partner, right? Say, for instance, your ex-husband or the previous girlfriend or wife. Now you get a divorce, and this other partner is making it difficult for you. You'll find that they struggle with their own relationships, and that's the reason, because afterwards then she got married to her partner, and now they became, so you find that bitterness that you harbor against your child's father or mother stops you from moving forward. And you can't necessarily bridge that phase in your life or move on. And I think for everybody, it's so much better if you have a situation where you're like, you know what, it's done. The relationship is over. We're moving on. We're each going to move on. And again, it goes back to, you brought these kids into the world. It's your responsibility to make sure that those kids have a healthy, constructive, safe environment, right? But now, in the sense where this is also healthy, we're speaking about healthy boundaries now. Say, for instance, you are friends with your stepchild's parent, right? Other parent. And the two families can come together and they can sit around the table. What are some healthy boundaries to take into consideration? Because it can't now be a matter of, okay, let's now go on holiday with each other, summer, every holiday we're together. Because the fact of the matter is there was a romantic relationship between the two of you previously. And, you know, certain things can arise again and it can cause problems now in the new marriage. And someone's going to be catching feelings, you know. So how do you set healthy boundaries?
Okay, so with this particular couple, we set boundaries in place that, listen, we will not meet in each other's homes at first.
Okay.
We'll meet if there's going to be a celebration of the child's birthday. Because we have other kids, let us do it in a public environment. You invited as normal, come together, sit down there. And especially what you're saying there, no holidays together. There are certain boundaries. We would respect each other's boundaries that are set. I'm married to this lady. If there's any communication between that the child needs something, then the mums will call each other.
Okay.
Or if there's something, in the case of boys, listen here, the guys will call each other. Because there's soccer matches now and the children need to go. So we all need to be there together. Whether you sit on that side of the field or us sit this side, it doesn't matter. We don't need to, and especially with them, they didn't need to be in each other's space all the time. But they are friends in terms of the children being healthy or the child being healthy. And so I think you're right in saying that there could be feelings, but I think it also depends upon how you moved on and moved past that relationship with the ex or the ex-husband.
Yeah.
And so to put that boundaries in place and say, listen, I understand that this is for the sake of the child. It's got nothing to do with the two of us. We'll be civil with each other. We'll be friends. When the child needs something, we'll be there for the child.
Yeah.
And I think there are certain things, and thankfully, I never experienced people falling in love with their ex. I pray,
Yeah, I think
Lord,
it's
please don't let-
security, man.
Yeah.
Security in your current relationship. Because, I mean, if you walk into a relationship and you know that there's a child there already, for you to have the perception that the two parents never have to communicate with each other, that's so delusional.
It's delusional.
Yeah.
It's honestly so delusional if you think that those parents never need to speak to each other, or you now going to be the point of contact now. Now that mom needs to speak to you now. It's so delusional because there has to be healthy communication between the two parents in order for the child to feel secure, for the child to feel, or his best or her best interest to be put first. There must be communication. So you have to be secure.
Thank you so much. So we've reached the halfway mark of the show already. So just over the halfway mark. Firstly, I want to say thank you to everybody who is watching at the moment. If you have not done so already, please hit that subscribe button. It's at the bottom. It's somewhere on your screen. It's there. But just hit that subscribe button. And then if you like this so far, please just hit that like button as well. And then we've got some people in the comments section. Veronica Lai saying good morning, beautiful people. Thank you. Good morning. And then I think this is it Shonay Sali? Is that Shonay? Okay. She says, morning family. I think it's that's Shonay. If not, Shonay, hello. And then we've got Jermaine Rigney, your husband. He's saying, thank you, my wife. Best mom in the world.
He wants
Brownie points. You definitely got your brownie points. So congratulations on that. Now I want to go over to, I'm going to ask you guys. Knowing what you know now and that you didn't know in the beginning, obviously it's still early for you, Crystal. So you will. This is a good show. This is a good show for you, so that you can
reflection
also
fun tips.
Goed.
So, okay, let's start with Yentl. Knowing now what you knew then, what are some of the things that you would change in terms of navigating that relationship, both with your stepson and with the mother, or even with your spouse and your children, blending that, because it's almost like the mom is the glue of the family. Like you need to stay level-headed, right? So knowing what you know now, is there anything you would change? And if so, what would you change?
Honestly, nothing comes to mind because, like I mentioned earlier, my stepson is he's really like a superstar. He's like every step-parent's dream because he's never been disrespectful towards me. I've never gotten, you're not my mother. But then also we've built a very good relationship, a very open relationship where he can speak to me about anything. So reflecting back, I don't think there's anything that I would have done differently on my side. Maybe between the two parents, they would sit and think maybe we could have done something differently. But from my side now, I don't think I would have done anything different.
For you, Crystal?
Yeah, like you just said, now it's beginner stage for me. So honestly, I
You
don't
still
think,
navigating?
No, I don't think. I think how it played out, it's supposed to play out that way. That's how I look at it. And learning and seeing how one can just make changes where one should make changes, or be patient where one needs to be patient.
Yes.
Because trust me, it's tricky. It's hectic at times. It's not all roses, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So we're still learning, and we're still navigating how best we know how, and considering the kids, man. And
Yes.
once they, like Pastor said, once they also in a happy place, and then we all be happy, and So
So, Pastor Neil, in a situation where you now have the kids are breaching, right, and you've got a case. It was fortunate for Yentl because her stepson, she is respectful and stuff, but not everybody's gonna have that, because also you don't know what home the other child comes from, and the bitterness that child has now towards the step parent. So when that arises, you mentioned earlier where the child is breaching maybe, or something happens and there's animosity, right? Built up tension. And the child lashes out at you when the child says, yeah, you are not my father or you are not my mother. And they resist the discipline that you give as a step parent. How do you work through that? What is the most reasonable means to bridge that gap? To calm things down, because now you must also feeling some type of way, right? How do you navigate through that?
Okay. When it becomes a bit difficult when the child is living with you, the stepchild is living with you, because you're in each other's faces 24/7. I think one of the most important things is to understand where the child is. And what I found that where that animosity comes in is when the husband now tells the mother, you must discipline your child. You see? And one mustn't rule out the fact that the other children are not watching that you're treating this child with kid gloves all the time. And so it births that animosity between them. I think once again, it takes two mature people to sit the child down and say, dude, you know what? We're at this point in our lives. You are disrespectful. You are like you would with any other child in terms of enforcing that discipline. And I think that you sit down with them both. And one of the things that I advocate most is that if you're going to be the head of the house, then that child needs to know that even if discipline is going to be enforced, that it comes from the head, the husband. I'm not going to send my wife to do that, because if you do that, you're relinquishing your role as the husband in the house.
Yes.
So have a discussion between the husband and wife. For me, is you have a discussion. Listen, this guy's out of line if it's her child. This guy's out of line. We need to find a solution. Before he lash out, these are the things that he said. And the man must stand up and say, listen, you guy, you do not speak to me like that in my house. I know that I'm not your father, but in this house we live by rules and standards, and that is not on. You need to enforce that. I want to relay a story to you. It's a story that I read. So this guy is an elder in his church. And so the stepchild is giving flack and carrying on all the time. And when you would address the child, you'll always refer to the mother like she's a stranger. You don't speak to your mother like that. You don't address your mother like that. You don't talk to your mother like that. And one day you are sitting in service and something dropped in his spirit. And so over lunch, what happened was the child just lashed out and said, just give me whatever was on the table. And then he took a stand. He said, boy, no one speaks to my wife like that.
Okay.
When he owned her, he started to realize, okay, it's now not a distant your mother and separating. This belongs to me, and you're not going to be disrespectful. And I think the opposite would be true as well. When the mother, if it's her son and the child is out of line, say, listen, nobody treats my husband in this way, and not uncle so-and-so. But when you bring that closer to yourself, because you are united and there's a unit now formed, and you don't separate the two entities, husband and wife, I mean mother and father, but this is my wife, and nobody's going to treat her in that way. I think from that perspective, once that is there, and you two know each other, where you're going to meet each other in terms of raising that child and sorting out the issues, then I think it's going to be the beginning. The other things, if it doesn't work, if those things doesn't work, is to get in someone else. Get somebody as a third party and have a one-on-one with the boy to hear what's happening in his life. And so that person can have an understanding of where they're going to. And even if they're not in the same room, I can give feedback. We can give feedback to the parents. Try this, try that.
Okay.
And not everything is a bed of roses. But I think after we connect as husband and wife, and this is my wife, and nobody treats her in that way. This is my husband, and nobody treats him in this way. I think it's beginning because it sets a tone of authority in the house.
Yes.
And I think children, they catch things better than what you teach them. So when they catch the vibe of the house, I think it will be sorted out. And every case is different from child to child. How open the child is to this new environment. How open the stepfather or stepmother is in terms of the acceptance, because everything forms and goes around the acceptance.
Yeah.
The acceptance. Take for a fact that the boy and mom hadn't had a boyfriend, or she's divorced years, and so the boy grows up, he's 13 and 14, and so he has become the husband in the house, as it were. He closes the doors, he makes sure that the cars are parked, he does, and so now somebody else comes in. So obviously there's going to be that bitter resistance. You're taking my mother away from me.
Yes.
What needs to, the mindset should be, we are in this thing because we love each other and we want to create a better environment for you as the child to grow and to experience life, as it were. And so those resistance come. But I believe there's nothing under the sun that a good talk cannot sort out.
Yes.
Depending where the child is, and also the influences that come from the other house. You know, how the bitterness. And also at that point, when you realize and you identify that it comes more from the other house, then you address the other part. You say, listen, this child is acting out because what you are saying, and we poison because of your bitterness, it spills over to the child, and so the child sees his father as this monster, and he's just a useless, and so when he comes home, what does he see? A useless.
Yeah.
So you need to change the attitude of both the parents, and when you realize that it's not about you, it's about the child's well-being, I think it's awesome. And I think in essence, one of the things that really struck me and that was mind-blowing for me is when a child can get into a space where he can feel safe to say I love you to his father and his stepfather while they are in the same room. And that is a testimony of somebody. When that child can say I love you to both and don't feel any different, that this one is going to catch feelings, I think that is the height of maturity, and that is ultimately what you really want.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's so interesting that you mentioned that personally, because, you know, even in a marriage where both of the kids are yours and it's not a blended family, right?
Hey.
Children are manipulative, and you see that from a young age. You can see how a child can manipulate the situation. So it's important to have that family structure in place from the beginning. It doesn't matter whether you have a blended family or
not.
whether you don't have a
Correct.
blended family. The father's the head of the house. And if it's established that way and the mother is not the one that is dominating the situation, you will see that the children tend to respect that dynamic because they know that there's discipline here, right? But with the kids now, because, okay, you've got you navigating a relationship with the child's parent, you're navigating a relationship with your stepchild, but now how do you make sure that the children get along in the house? Because obviously at first it might be nice, but you're going to run into differences, right? For you, Yen, your sons are all your husband's sons, right? Including the stepson. But for you, it's different, Crystal. So I'd like to understand those differences to how do you deal with conflict between the kids? Even your own kids. Because maybe sometimes the stepchild has a better relationship with one of your kids and not the other. It makes the other one feel left out. How do you deal with that conflict?
I honestly can't even think of a time that they had conflict with one another, honestly. Like the Jaden, my stepson, and our kids. It feels even weird to mention it that way. Because he's always been involved in everything. He doesn't relate to our kids as my kids, or it's his brothers.
Yes.
He was there with the birth. He was there with the actual birth, but I mean bringing home the kids. He was there. I'm meeting my younger brother. So I don't think, but if ever anything arose where there was conflict, honestly, I feel like I would have Jermaine handle it because he is father to both.
Yes.
So he can discipline as a father to both. And they both will feel we being disciplined, but we also being equally loved at the same time. If I had to do the disciplining if I had to discipline Jaden and Christian, for example, Jaden might feel like I'm taking Christian's spot because it's my son.
Yes.
So I would step out of the situation and let Jermaine handle it. That's how I think I would do it.
And for you, Crystal?
Yeah, that's one is tricky. So let me just tell you the age. Okay, you know Jada, she's turning 14 on Saturday, teenager.
Hey.
So then, and then we have Chloe 9, Leo 8, Kiara 7, Zoe 5, and then Lola 3. So they still, yeah. So how these kids, you know how they can be, oh gosh, but they really love each other. They
Yes.
really, they form
Sibling
that unity.
rivalry is
So
normal.
that is basically gonna happen. But the funny part is when they fighting with one another or whatever, there must be a mishap or something like that. When we try to discipline them, it's like they have this where they turn on, turn
Against
again.
you.
Then it's again
they
on
unite
us
across
now.
the-
Yeah, it's like they united now, they on us now. So it's a beautiful relationship that they basically forming. There is that, which we still obviously navigating, like how we're going to handle, just to form that unity. But they love each other, and because they're still small, so I think, we just try to discipline them all equally. There is that, I don't know how to discipline your kids, so we're still trying, man,
Yes.
to figure it all out. But because they're still young and still small, the smaller ones, they're gonna have that conflict or between one another. But they understand that they're sisters and brother. But
Okay.
I think it's very difficult when it's not your child, because you have to make sure the child still feels your love at the end of the day. So it is a difficult one to discipline, but that's why I think, like, personally, I wouldn't discipline somebody's child who's not mine. I'd let the parent do it.
But I think you must be present there.
Yeah.
Sit down
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
So Veronique says that she also comes from a blended family, and she says that whenever we as siblings had conflict, my stepdad would tell us to sort it out amongst ourselves, because if he shouted at us, we are friends again, then we gang up on him. So it's like that situation. So Pastor Neil, back to you. What do you think would be the most mature, civil way to handle the because look, kids are kids, and even with siblings, like blood brothers and sisters, they run into conflict. But obviously now there's a new dynamic here, like Yentl was saying. You don't want your stepson to feel like you are taking sides, and so you would ask your husband instead to do it. Obviously you need to be in support of the discipline that he is giving. There needs to be a united front there. But what do you think is the best way or the most reasonable way? Because I don't think there's necessarily a best way. Like we said, there's different families, different dynamics, different personalities. But what is the most reasonable way that you can deal with a situation like that? When the siblings are fighting, the step siblings, right, are fighting with each other, the half siblings are fighting with each other. What do you then do as parents to both of these kids?
One of the things you mustn't do is ignore it.
Okay.
Because it's gonna fester, and it's gonna get. I think
And
the
blow
best
up.
way, and blow up. I think it's the best way in terms of the best way or the reasonable way to do it is to have a conversation with them and come from the perspective of where you are the adult, like your own children fighting. Sometimes parents don't even worry if the own children are fighting; they might deal with themselves later. And what Veronique is saying is it's really one of the things that stands out. You need to deal with the conflict that exists there. And it's bound to get out of hand. And that is where the parents come in. If there's an opportunity, if you are accustomed to having family meetings, then call a family meeting, sit around the table and say, dudes, this is what's happening. We don't necessarily like what's happening. Please address this. What you did there was wrong. And so, like, for me, a family forum would work well.
Okay.
Because then it's everybody. It's almost like a generalization of how this family is going to go.
Yes.
We know there's conflict between the two of you. You don't need to fight because you are, in essence, you are brother and sister. So because you come from, in this case, if there was one from the like in Yentl's case, the boy is from Jermaine, and so, they got other children, is to bring everybody under the same frame of mind. Say, listen, we are a united family, and this is how we're going to deal with conflict. This is your brother, this is your sister, and the aspect about love. And most of it comes from how the two of you treat one another and how they see you treat the stepchild, and the two of you together treating the stepchild. Because children get into that place. I found also that one of the main areas where children become rebellious is because he's the eldest now. Right? He's the eldest. He's the old booty in the house. Now he comes into a blended family where he's no longer the old booty. And now somebody else is the old booty. And I think that type of contention always exists. And there are ways to bridge it. And as I said, that every situation is different, one to the other. And how families, what they do to resolve conflict amongst themselves. And I think the best way is to call people around the table and say, guys, listen, we know that this is happening. This is not what is expected. And this is how we will push forward in terms of that. Because you know the boundaries and limitation. And also you know the personalities of your children in terms of dealing that. So you know how to deal with. The one thing that must also not happen is for the one to feel that it's on me. And then now I'm the one.
That always gets the blame.
Always gets the blame. He's never the one that's wrong. So it's one of those tricky things. But you know what? There's nothing that a good talk cannot sort out.
Yes.
So on that, sorry.
Okay, no, go.
So on that, with the family meeting, we do have our family meetings where we call all the kids and sit them down and I'll speak to them, But these kids, oh gosh, they've got a mind, or they're so creative. So these kids. So then when something happens, just to think of my head now, something broke or something. Okay. So then we'll call, obviously, who broke this thing, and obviously that person is dead. There's, ghosts. So obviously no one. So then we're like, no.
They form an alliance.
We need to know who broke this thing.
Yeah.
So then we say, go and sit. Obviously, we want the culprit to come out. You know what we found out one day. So they went, obviously, to the room, and now they're discussing. No, it's your turn to take the fall. Oh, my word. We're like, so now we're saying, okay, as much as, there's that unity between them and whatever, So we're like, but then something serious might happen.
Yes.
And now what now?
They're covering
because
up.
They're like, they're covering up for one another. We're like, no.
Which is good also,
kids,
I think.
Yeah.
Which is cute, but we're like, oh my word, like really, what does one do now with this now? Yeah.
So while you're on that note, because we have to round it up and we have to end it, I'd like to ask you, what is the favorite thing about your blended family? So from the top of your head, what is the one thing that you can think about that's your favorite thing about your blended family?
We love to have fun together, I must say, because we call ourselves the Crazy Eight. And I think we love by that name, which is sometimes crazy. But we love having fun together. As much as especially when we're all together, we try to make the best out of it.
Okay.
We really try to make, establish, something that makes us unique.
Yes.
And makes, creates that love with one another. And as much as, we're still learning this thing and whatever, but I must say there's a lot of love between the 8 of us, and which is beautiful, man. We just came from vacay, all 8 of us went to Cape Town, and it was so beautiful. They enjoyed their date, should I say. It's beautiful being together,
Yes.
A lot of people ask us, how do y'all get it right or whatever? But I think just because we accept what it is, and we really say that God blessed us and brought us together, because maybe in a normal mind, somebody will say, no, this is not possible, this can't. But when we're in it now, it's beautiful, man. I won't even lie a word of a lie. We're still learning a lot, yes, and with prayer, we pray a lot together as well.
Okay.
We make God, our foundation.
Yes.
Pray together, let them also understand, And yes, it's beautiful, man. It's like on the TikTok Sam, that's a crazy bunch, man. So we try to ways that brings us unity together. We work on that. So they love swimming, they love doing whatever. So we tap into that, what they love, and we say as much as, because there's so much things that's happening around. I mean, the world that we're living in, it's crazy enough.
Yes.
So kids doesn't need to be living with adult issues.
Correct.
Or so when we together, we try to make it as pleasant as child friendly, and just bring that home, and say forget about everything else and just be a child, just be you. And so we try really. I love it, man. We both love it.
That's good. And for you, Yen?
I think the most favorite thing, or the thing that I admire the most about our family, is that my sons really look up to their eldest brother. He's literally like their everything. So everything that he does, they want to do. So we basically have teenagers all around, no matter the age.
Yeah.
Because they want to do everything that he does. But also I feel like he's a very good role model. He's somebody that you can admire. And that's what I appreciate about him the most, yeah. And then also like the openness that we have in our family, because his brother is also part of us.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't, sometimes we're not only 4 boys, we're 5. There's 5, you know. So, yeah. So
Yeah,
I
no,
think,
you were called to be a boy mom, clearly.
yeah. But I
Okay.
appreciate that about him.
Awesome. So we're going to end off with you, Pastor Neil. What advice would you give to people who are considering, or they may be dating and they want to pursue marriage, but they've got blended families, or there's a woman that's thinking, okay, I've got a child, maybe a child out of wedlock, and she's no longer with the child's father, or even the father sitting with the child without the child's mother, and they're nervous about that. What advice would you give to them?
Look, there's enough good stories going around. There's
Yes.
enough good families. For example, the two of you. There's enough role models, and there's enough planned, or what can I put it? Planned ways of lives and lifestyle changes that needs to happen around. There's a lot of good testimony of that. So I think for them is to sit down, count the cost, look at the reality of the matter, look at both the negative and the positive, and make a decision. I think if you can get to a point where your ultimate goal would be to provide a safe and acceptable and a loving home for those kids, and provide it, and know that it's not just about you, but it's about lives that you affect. I think it's going to be the beginning of you getting through the rest of your marriage together. I think that once there's a mutual understanding between husband and wife first, and knowing what you are getting yourself in for, and living with that decision, and having to sacrifice as well in terms of that, I think is the beginning of people getting to a place where they can get into that environment. There's nothing to fear. As I said, there's a lot of good stories. There's a lot of role models. There's a lot of families who have made a success of blended families. And it is to understand if the one person, if the baby's mama is not in a position to give that child a better life, and you are able to, then I think, listen, just let somebody else. There's nothing going to change. You're going to be that child's mother, father for the rest of their lives. You will always be a part. But if you're not in a, let me say, and for a lack of getting to something, a financial situation where you are, and your child is going to have a better outlook on life, and they are going to provide that, then make that sacrifice in terms of that. And I think ultimately, when mommy and daddy, when future husband and future wife comes together, and they have an understanding, and they have a plan already in place, then I think it's going to be the ultimate for them getting there. And it's the most beautiful thing to have a family. I think family is fun, and I admire what you're doing. I admire what you're doing, and the fact that they can look up, and they give that amount of respect to your elder son. You know what comes from the parents, because that is how you see him. He will walk in that pathway. So for those out there that wants to get married and you have blended families, I think sit down, chat about it, count the cost, look what you're getting yourself into, make sure that the decision that you are making takes into consideration every single aspect about getting into a blended family. And I think provided that environment of acceptance, of love and security, and the children will come to you. I always say that if you provide enough love and security and all that, the children will be naturally drawn to you. That you don't become the catalyst for war, but you become the catalyst for change in that person's lives.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Pastor Neil.
Thank you.
Just for a word out there for those of you who are watching and you need help, right? I just want to say that Pastor Neil is a family pastor at Crystal Church SA. So I know, Pastor Neil, you will handle that by yourself. But he is the family counselor at Crystal Church SA. Ladies, thank you so much for being on the show, for making yourself vulnerable, because like we said, it's not an easy topic to speak about. You need to take, again, the children's feelings into consideration, but you did an excellent job in making everybody feel safe. For our viewers who watched, Veronique ends off by saying, agreed, Pastor Neil, from earlier. She says that we didn't have many family meetings, but when we did, our parents really sorted us out. So thank you for watching. Thank you once again for hitting that like button. Thank you for subscribing. And to our beautiful guests, our beautiful and handsome guests.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. And then until next time, next week is the last week of July. So that means that we're going to end off with one more relationship show. It's going to be exciting. I think we're going to go to the younger guys now. We spoke about marriage all the time, but next week we'll speak about navigating dating. Dating. So thank you so much, everybody. Until next time, bye.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.